All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Glenn West here, a senior writer at Go247. Joined today. We're back with another pod here, another fall camp pod. But obviously, got a little bit of a treat for you guys. We're welcoming our newest member, Dylan Sanders. I was, is a senior here, kind of entering his final season with the Manship School of Journalism. Dylan is put out some really great articles for us so far, and we're really excited to bring Dylan on board. He's done some really great stuff, and kind of has a little bit of a background with the podcasting world too. So I'll just turn it over to you for a little bit, Dylan. Just kind of riff about yourself for a little while, and just we're excited to have you on, man. But how are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing good. So just started today. It was third day of classes. It's been less than a week. I'm already lost. Oh my goodness, so much to do. Like tonight, I have to watch The Shining. Crazy, busy school schedule. But I know I'm very excited. Last year of school, it's been a journey. I know people, like to know where people went to high school. I went to Central.
Yep.
Shout out, go Wildcats. They'll be talked about a lot because they are in the hardest division in Baton Rouge, out of nowhere now in high school football. But graduated from there. LSU now. I'm getting my degree in journalism, and so just started at 247 last week. Officially, and then I also write about the Saints for Saints Wire, which is part of the USA Today subgroup. Also, if you like the Saints, I used to do a daily show for about a year with Ross Jackson, who is the host of Locked On Saints. So I've been doing shows for a while. Been doing sports writing for a couple of years now. Excited to take that next step and start with 247. Learn from Glen and Sonny, get into the recruiting realm. It's all just super, super exciting. I love football. I love sports in general. College athletics has been where I focused a lot. I'm just very excited to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the deal is with Dylan, he'll be helping us out a lot with the team stuff and team side of things. He'll be following us around and he's been at all the practices so far. We've been doing these practice notes. We've been at all the pressers and everything. So he's really well-versed in all this stuff already. And we're going to throw him right into the fire here. I think we're going to get him put to work right away. But so we have plenty to talk about today. I think probably the biggest thing, we don't want to bury the lead, as you say in the journalism world, but the LSU quarterback battle, it certainly sounds like things are winding down for LSU. Max, obviously with Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels now as the two guys that you're really looking at as the future starters here, and really winding, kind of been a hectic last week. I think last week at this time we were watching our final full practice. We were supposed to have one on yesterday on Tuesday of this week, but weather was being very uncooperative, and we kind of came in initially thinking with this pod we'd have a whole bunch to talk about with that last final practice or the final full practice we would get, but just weather wasn't helping us out any, and so but we still got a lot I think to kind of touch on. I think the quarterback battle, Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier, obviously is the big one, but just kind of give me, I guess, your initial thoughts on what this battle has looked like. I'll chime in when we need to, but yeah, absolutely. Just kind of give us your initial takeaways of what you've seen the last week from those two, what we've heard from Coach Kelly, and just kind of where this thing seems to be going.
Yeah, so for me personally, this quarterback competition has not played out the way that I thought it would, but in a different way from others. I have been on the Jaden Daniels train since he came to the school, and I still am. Don't get me wrong with that, but I think Nussmeier has shown me a lot more than I expected him to in terms of growth. My first game covered was the Arkansas game, so I did get to see him up close last year. So I don't know. I just didn't expect him to have taken such a leap in one offseason in terms of his talent. Because arm talent, I don't think, no matter who you talk to, nobody has a question of his arm talent. It's It's really good. And Jaden's is as well. I think the way for me, it has not been a question of talent anymore. These are two super, super talented quarterbacks. But the way I have been leaning, and I think the way that the coaching staff will lean, is towards Jaden Daniels being your starter for Florida State, just because of how he has handled the offense. During the scrimmage we saw each person take a couple drives, and whenever Jaden was behind center, it was play, and then touchdown or field goal. Whenever Nussmeier, it was not as smooth. They had to call a timeout at one point, getting the play call in. It just was not as easy of a process for Nussmeier, and that's expected. Jaden Daniels has played 30 games, and I think you can tell in his management of the offense that he's played 30 games. And Nussmeier's just newer.
Yeah, I agree completely, and kind of just piggybacking off of that a little bit, I think probably the thing that we've learned from Coach Kelly in the last week is how much they're going to really lean on experience and leadership. I think that's probably the one thing, we asked him about the leadership that Jaden Daniels has shown. He gave us a really great answer on Saturday with the clap reference, just him being able to really command the offense when he's in there. I think that was a really apparent thing that Coach Kelly and really this offensive staff have taken to in the last several weeks. And like you said, it was never really about the talent with both of these guys. I think kind of heading into the summer, the biggest question mark with this whole room really was what Jaden would look like coming back, with the footwork and just the improvements that you made in the short and intermediate accuracy with the throwing. I think that was probably the biggest X factor kind of in the summer, is how we would look after having a full off season with not only his quarterbacks coaches back in California, but coordinating with the LSU staff as well, and just how all that looked coming back into the fall. And he really looked like a more confident passer. He looked like a more accurate passer really from the first couple practices on. And I think that's probably kind of where we're at right now. I do think it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels as the starter. Again, nothing against Nussmeier. I mean, Nussmeier, at least a couple times of practice, makes these throws that not many other college quarterbacks can make. I think you can see the talent, the potential, but the one thing that he just doesn't have right now is the experience level that a Jaden Daniels has. And I think that's going to be a big factor here. And I think it's not only the experience, but the mobility. I think Jaden Daniels does an absolutely terrific job of extending plays with his feet. And I think the biggest thing here is if you've got concerns, which I don't think LSU has a ton of, but they've been there the last 2 years with this offensive line. If you have some of those concerns and you see them early in these games and early in the season, you want somebody back there that's going to be able to scramble, is going to be able to get into the open field with his legs and kind of keep drives alive and keep plays alive. I think that's something that LSU really struggled with last year, was keeping drives alive when things kind of broke down. When you have a guy like Daniels who can move the way he does, and we've seen it up close and personal, it is no joke. I mean, he can absolutely fly. I think you can save a couple drives of games at least with his legs. And I think that's going to be a huge deciding factor in all this.
What I want to clarify, and I think that it's just a matter of whenever you're writing something, sometimes you can't get the point across that you want to. I don't think Jaden Daniels is a running quarterback. He is a quarterback that can run. And a lot of people hear about his legs a lot, which he is a serious threat to his game and is a huge point in his favor. But he doesn't look to run. I think a lot of people think that whenever we talk about his speed and his athleticism, is that we're saying he is a run-first quarterback. He's not at all. And I think he's proven that in the scrimmage reps that we've seen. He's progressing through his reads. He's stepping up, staying in the pocket, and whenever the play collapses, then he's able to get out and get a first down with his legs. It's not like, oh, I don't have my first read, I'm going to run. That's not the type of quarterback that he is. And I know some people are worried about that. So I want to put that to rest, where that's not a real concern with him.
Yeah, and what we kind of know about this offense, right? I mean, they want to get these receivers the ball. I mean, that's the one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I think I took away probably from Kelly on Saturday as well, which was a couple press conferences ago for him. He seems like we're talking to him a lot recently, but they noted that they have probably one of the deepest receiving cores in all of college football. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Kayshon Boutte, if Malik Neighbors isn't an All SEC player at the end of the year, I think something's gone wrong. I think he has shown to be an absolutely lethal weapon. I think he's going to be really, really difficult for opposing defenses. I think those two kind of serving as your 1-2 punch, and then you can mix in, a Jack Best, a Brian Thomas, a Jeray Jenkins, and Chris Hilton, and Kyron Lacey. I mean, there's just so many guys that I think will have opportunities to get the ball. And you want your quarterback to be able to find those guys. And I think probably the first couple scrimmages that we got to see, Daniels was doing a really nice job of that. We didn't get to see him air it out a whole lot. I think he was settling a lot for the short and intermediate routes, which was great because that's what the defense was allowing. And so I do think that LSU will ultimately decide on Jaden Daniels. Sounds like, from Coach Kelly, it's going to happen in the next couple days. But we got all the stories written just in case. But I think and look, I think the other thing here is that maybe we haven't touched on yet is I think both of these guys could absolutely end up playing this year. I mean, if you kind of get into the week 8, week 9 range, and LSU's got a couple losses, what's the harm in putting Nussmeier out if he's showing out in practice and keeping on top of things and really showing that he has that ability to be able to start. So. Just because you start the season with somebody does not mean that they're going to end the season with the same guy. And so I do think there's going to be opportunities throughout the season, possibly for Nussmeier to sneak in and get some reps. But just what are your thoughts on that? What do you think about both of those guys potentially playing this year?
I think that both will play for sure. But what I want to see, I want whoever it is that gets called, whose name gets called against Florida State, I want them to have the entire game versus Florida State.
Yeah.
I think that'll be important to setting a rhythm and setting. I don't mind playing both quarterbacks. I don't like 2 quarterback systems because you need to establish a rhythm, and giving the guy you name the starter the full game against Florida State, I think will be very important. Now, whenever it comes to games against like Florida, Southern. Obviously, most people don't expect that game to be super close. That's whenever I think you'll see a little bit more of one quarterback versus another to get them both some live action, maybe. But I think this first game, they need to stick with whoever they name.
I think I'm with you there, and I think we're probably both in that Daniels boat. I think we both pretty well articulated that. So I think we could probably move on here. There's a couple topics that we want to hit on outside of the quarterback question. I think probably one of the biggest things for me is just some of the positions on the roster that have kind of gained some clarity over the last couple, really weeks. But, I think the offensive line certainly sounds like they're settling in on an offensive line rotation. The cornerbacks group certainly sounds like there's the veterans there that they trust. Just a little bit of background. We got to watch practice on Tuesday, and Sevyn Banks and Demarius McGee were both dressed, but they were not participating in team drills. So, I think that's certainly at this point, with a week and change until the first game, something you want to keep your eye on in terms of just whether or not those guys will see a heavy amount of reps. I think right now the team feels very confident in Jarek Bernard-Converse and Colby Richardson. I think those are 2 guys you're going to see a lot of against Florida State. As far as the offensive line goes, they did some shaking around. I think they had Cam Wire at right tackle on Saturday. They had him a little bit there yesterday. They have Frazier at right guard. They got Shorts at left guard. You got Dellinger at center. Campbell at left tackle. I think that's probably your 5 or 6 that you see the most against Florida State as well, with maybe a little Charles Turner mixed in, maybe a little Marcus Dumerville mixed in. Those are kind of the 7 or 8 that I think Coach Kelly has really settled in on. And I guess kind of what are your overall thoughts of those 2 groups? Because it's really been kind of the 2 groups that I think outside of quarterback, people have been really, kind of keying in on and looking at the most.
So I think the left side of the line is for sure intact. I think you're going to have Campbell and you're going to have Schwartz. They make a great duo. And it sounds like Garrett Dellinger has gotten the snapping under control, because it was really bad the one day that we saw, but apparently that was just an outlier day with a lot on his plate learning the position. It's understandable. But again, we didn't get to watch the offense at all yesterday, so we didn't get to see any of the snapping. But apparently, if we want to trust Coach Kelly, it has been fixed, been resolved, and we're now that is settled. Sounds like it's going to be Dellinger. So it's really that the right guard, right tackle, depending on what combination. He mentioned Bradford can play either position. Yeah. So you could see Bradford at right guard and then Wire or Doomerville at the right tackle. Doomerville is a guy that really surprised me whenever we saw an extended amount of him in practice. I like the strides that he's making. So yeah, I agree with the same groupings that you have for offensive line. As for cornerback, Jarek Bernard-Converse is not getting targeted whenever we see him, whenever we are seeing team drills. I think he has it locked down. Colby Richardson, there's always something in my mind that wants to say Cody Dickerson now.
I know.
Like Brian Kelly gave us the yips. It's gonna be hard to separate that completely. In my mind.
A little background on that. For I want to say 3 or 4 straight press conferences, we were asking about Colby Richardson, and Coach Kelly came in with the Kobe Dickerson. I think it just took him a little while to switch that brain. He kind of told us yesterday that he had a lot of Dickersons playing for him the last couple of years at Notre Dame, but it was a nice little lighthearted moment from the coach. But yes, Colby Richardson certainly seems like he's established himself.
I really think that it is a funny anecdote, but I think it goes to show kind of how out of nowhere it is that Coach isn't messing up Kayshon Boutte's name. That's not happening. He might mess up his name. That's a bad example depending on how he wants to pronounce it. But
Nussmeier.
Yeah,
he's not messing up
Nussmeier. Yeah, he's not messing up Nuss. He's messing up his name because of how new and unexpected his emergence has been. But apparently it's very real. It's not just preseason fall camp smoke. It sounds like he's going to be out there against Florida State. And that really backs up what we've seen in practice. He looks the part. He looks physically the part. There's been all the talk of him reforming his body. He looks like an SEC corner out there. Whenever we saw him the first time he was getting first team reps, I had to look him up. I didn't know who he was. I was like, who's that?
I thought Mekhi Garner had maybe switched numbers.
Yeah, that's what a couple people thought. And Mekhi Garner is bigger though. Mekhi Garner is safety size out there.
He looks good too. He's been getting all the first team reps too. I mean, so they have a nice little healthy rotation going. So sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're good. I was just going to say about Mekhi Garner, he's the most vocal, I think, on the team. He's loud in a good way. He's loud. He's talking up the offense. He's, getting in each other's faces. I don't know. I feel like the energy through the second half of camp has been so much higher and so much better than the first game. And that is expected. But at some point you wanted it to get to this level where they're jawing at each other. They're all having fun. It's all friendly practice stuff. It's teammate talk. Yeah. But you wanted it to get to this level, and you didn't know how much this group was going to gel, given how many new faces there are from all over the country. It is such a new group, but it sounds like they really have begun to meld as a team. And I think the cornerback group is a good example of that, because they've been one of the more vocal groups on the team.
Sure, absolutely. I think the secondary as a whole has been very good with that. Fouché has been John a lot. I think we've heard a lot about Major Burns and his ability to be a vocal communicator in the back half of this defense. Certainly think you're going to see a lot of Major early in the season with Jay Ward and Greg Brooks there kind of filling out the secondary. So, yeah, I think that's, kind of building on that maybe even a little bit more. One of the more interesting answers I thought Coach Kelly gave yesterday was just how much this team looks ready to play. I think the kind of the first couple weeks of camp, it's a lot of feeling each other out. It's a lot of finding out, the combinations that work, who's going to be in line for significant roles in the season. And now I think they're starting to get into that point where they're going to start playing here very quickly for Florida State. And I think the players are starting to take notice of that, and they understand how crucial of a point this is in fall camp. And you're seeing a lot of that vocal communication. You're seeing a lot of the high intensity, and we've certainly, I think, kind of entered a new realm here of the fall camp. So definitely think that LSU's getting ready and certainly going to be prepared for that first week. But I think kind of just moving on. Did you have any other big takeaways from practices the last couple of days? I mean, we got to see them on Tuesday and on Saturday. For those who might not know, LSU was inside Tiger Stadium, I think, for the first time all fall, and they had a bunch of former players in, and they had a really nice practice, and got a little. Again, the weather kind of was uncooperative, but a lot of those guys stuck it out throughout the whole practice. They were in there the whole time. Media only got about 35 minutes, but just did you have any kind of just takeaways walking around Tiger Stadium or walking around the last couple days with other positions on the roster?
Well, first off, it just felt good to be back in Tiger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you're in the stadium, there's this sort of feel of like, okay, we're actually here. The off season's ending. We're getting back to football. It's soon. So just first off, it's just good to be back in there. But also another position group that I think needs to be talked about as a certainty is Jay Bramblett. Jay Bramblett has looked really good as a punter. And I feel like that's a position group where I feel LSU has been lacking for a couple of years. We haven't had that. We've had our guys, but like haven't had a guy that you think, okay, this guy can flip the field position for us on a dime. Like no one to super trust. Yeah, like since Von Rosenberg. Yeah. So now I feel like we're really back to that. He is constantly booming punts, like 50 yarders back to back, stuff like that. And I saw him in Tiger Stadium. They were using the small amount of field that they have in terms of practicing as much as they could. He was punting into the stands, and then the kickers were going to pick up the punts from the stands. But we got to see him, and he was still absolutely booting the balls. So that was a guy that stood out during the little section that we got to watch that day.
Yeah, I agree. I think they kind of have a good sense of their punter. It sounds like their kicking situation is still a work in progress. I think Damian Ramos is the guy that Coach Kelly floated out there as the leader in the clubhouse for field goals. They're still looking for a kickoff guy. So that is one that I think will kind of come down to the wire. Yeah, I think one for me that just is it hadn't been talked about a whole ton, but I think is going to be really important is the linebacker group. I mean, we've seen a lot of Mike Jones and Greg Penn in the middle of that field. And I think probably one of the biggest takeaways last week when we had the full practice experience, LSU was giving up some big holes in the middle of the middle of the field. Like Noah Cain and Armani Goodwin both had really good days for the offense last week in that full practice. And, I think it's one of those things. We asked Coach Matt House about it last week. It's a physicality thing, I think, for both of those guys. They're not used to, or at least in Jones's case, is not used to playing that middle linebacker spot a whole ton in his career. He got a little bit of that opportunity towards the end of last season, but I think this is kind of his big year to really show that he can be an inside linebacker. Greg Penn is obviously still a second-year player. He's got a lot of work to do, but I think he has shown this staff really to be a key piece in what they're hoping to do. But I think they really like the depth in that group. That's something Coach Kelly talked about last week, and West Weeks and Harold Perkins, the freshman, I think has really flashed at times as well. Micah Baskerville, can't forget about him. He's probably the most experienced in terms of SEC ready and SEC kind of linebacker. He saw it a lot over his last couple of years at LSU, and so we expect him to have a significant role. But the linebacker group was really one that I think it has flown a little bit under the radar this year, just because you kind of felt like you knew what you had with the group coming in. But I think a couple of those guys have really stood out, and I could certainly see a situation where they rotate 4 or 5 guys into that group early in the season until they find that right combination. So That's just really one of a couple of the things that we noticed, I think, over the last couple of weeks. But yeah,
I wanted to add real quick. A lot of people on the boards have been asking about the physicality because a lot of the media availability in terms of camera, like being able to film, is during like the non-tackling stuff. So they haven't seen it. You mentioned a name, West Weeks. That dude is a thumper.
Yeah. No, I think he had the biggest hit probably of all fall camp that I've seen, at least. He got, they hit Jere Jenkins on a nice little slant route, and Jere was flying down the field. Somebody got a hold of Jere, but then Wes Weeks came in and just absolutely pummeled him at the very end of that play. And Jere popped right back up. He was fine. It was a big hit, and it was really nice to see, I think, for the media just to get that kind of physicality out there. But no, I think the physical nature of these practices has been really good, and I think they've done a nice job of keeping everybody healthy. I think that's another thing too. There's not many injuries out there. I mean, Seven Banks has been in and out. McGee has been pretty much limited, I think, since the early part of camp, but there hasn't been Bash and Hilton were obviously limited earlier, but they're fully back now. I think these guys are really, really healthy heading into the year, and that's really since the 2019 season. You couldn't say that about LSU. It was either opt-outs or injuries or guys just not being healthy enough to really be going full speed. And so I think that's certainly a really big positive sign.
I think that with the health, and then we are constantly talking about players reforming their bodies, going through these transformations, looking the best they've ever looked. I just want to give a shout out to the strength and conditioning staff. It seems like they're doing a fantastic job. Jake Flint. Yeah, it seems like this staff is really, really good. And it seems like Kelly brought in some good people to take over that charge. This doesn't seem like a team that's going to get pushed around by Missouri.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I think they're heading into this year very, very physically ready to handle anything that's thrown at them, and so that's a good sign. I think that was pretty much it from the team side of things. We did want to touch on some high school football that's starting up. Obviously, that's a big part of the recruiting business, the recruiting world. We got Sonny and Dylan are both going to be hitting up some spots this week. At the end of this week, it's Jamboree week for high school football. Just a couple of matchups that we're looking for around here in the Baton Rouge area. Madison Prep's taking on Woodlawn. That's obviously a great chance to see Ricky Collins and Matthews, the safety commit, who's currently committed to
Tennessee.
Tennessee. That's right. He did the little flip, I think, at the end. I think most people were expecting Texas, but he's at Tennessee. We got Bel Air is taking on Liberty, and Liberty obviously has Caleb Jackson, the running back. St. James and Vanderbilt Catholic. Kai Preen, the athlete that just recently committed to LSU, is going to be participating in that game. You got Catholic and Dunham. That's obviously a really big, two big programs here in Baton Rouge area that have put out some really talented players over several years. And Shelton Sampson, the Catholic receiver, is going to be right there in that mix. And you got Lafayette Christian and Zachary as well, and that's going to be a Kylan Jackson, Eli Holstein, Jawan Johnson, the 2024 player. Lots of guys certainly that I think Sonny and Dylan are going to get a chance to get a good look at, I think, on the field. And so, Dylan, just talk about a couple of the games that you're going to be hitting up this week and some of the prospects you're excited to see.
Yeah, so weather permitting, being as though we are in August in Louisiana, you can never be too sure. I mean, I think it's storming right now. It's safe to assume it is.
It's storming here for sure.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're going to try, at least me and Sonny are going to be at Woodlawn tomorrow, hopefully. Very excited to see Ricky Collins up close and with a little bit more progression over the offseason, see how he looks. And then we always do have to keep a close eye on Jordan Matthews because I think it's well known that LSU is not giving up on him. Nope. And a lot of people have been sharing the sentiment that they feel better about LSU having a chance at him with the late switch to Tennessee from Texas. They feel a little bit better about LSU being able to maybe sneak in there. But whatever it is, LSU is not giving up on that. So I'm excited to still keep an eye on him. And then Friday, I plan to be on the Lafayette Christian and Zachary to see Kylan Jackson. Personally, that's who I'm most excited for on that day because he just plays a real fun style of football as a safety. Very physical. And of course, Eli Holstein is not coming to LSU, but it'll still be interesting to see him play in terms of what we can expect at whenever he's at Alabama for those couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Jawan Johnson is in that game too. He's a
Jawan Johnson
guy.
Yeah, most likely to play cornerback, I believe, but he'll be playing. He plays quarterback at high school. We'll see if he plays both sides, maybe, or if that changes.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Collins as well. I mean, we saw him. I think I was back at the 7-on-7 thing that LSU had earlier in June, and I think that's kind of when LSU really stepped up and heated up the pressure on him. Was at that 7-on-7 tournament. I think the ball really flies off his arm. He does a really nice job of getting the ball out quickly, and I think he's going to be a really special player for the future. And so. Yeah,
I think there are a ton of people that genuinely believe that Ricky Collins is the best quarterback out of Louisiana from this class.
I mean, it's
possible.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I would say he's certainly in the upper echelon.
I haven't seen him in person, so I can't say, but I do know that there are a ton of people and coaches alike that that think he will be, or at least maybe not is right now, but he could be. I mean, he has, I think, limitless potential, but has some of those mechanics that he needs to work on. But you look at it, it's a lot of the same stuff like footwork, throwing motion, release. It's a lot of the same stuff that Jaden had to work on a lot coming from Arizona State to LSU. So with how much we've seen Jaden improve, it'd be interesting to see Ricky Collins get into LSU and have that staff to help him work on those things.
Well, I do remember when we talked with Ricky about a week or two ago when he made his commitment, one of the comps that he got from this coaching staff was Jaden Daniels. I'm spacing on the other one. He gave me two names, but Jaden Daniels was one of them. And so I'm not sure he's got quite the athletic mobility that Jaden has, but he's got every bit the arm talent. I've seen it up close, and he's gonna be fun to watch. And so I think that was pretty much it. I think that was pretty much what we wanted to touch on today. Just did want to run through kind of the tentative game plan for in-season pods with you guys. I think our plan right now is to do one Sunday, kind of recapping the game on Saturday, and kind of looking ahead to the future opponent kind of deal. We'll do that one on Sunday after a game, and then we'll do another one on Wednesday usually. I think Sunday, Wednesday is probably what we're looking at because we'll have a nice chance to talk with Coach Kelly. We'll have an opportunity to talk with some players on Monday and Tuesday, and then be able to kind of have, I think, a better sense of how the team's feeling heading into that next Saturday's game on Wednesday. So that's kind of the tentative plan from there. Was there anything else that, Dylan, you wanted to chime in on, or are we good?
I did want to add real quick that it was Desmond Ridder was the other player that Ricky Collins got compared to, and I think that's a little bit more closer of because they're both athletic guys who are not like Jaden Daniels, they're not running 21 miles per hour like Jaden Daniels was.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, yeah, no, that's great, and certainly I think we're excited. We're excited for the season. I hope you guys are as well. So stay in tune with us. I'm sure Dylan will be on these every week with me and helping us out. We'll get Sonny on as well. But with the Go 247 podcast, I'm Glenn West. He's Dylan Sanders, and we'll catch you guys later.